Patriot Hour for Thursday, August 15th. Thursday, August 15th, folks. It's summer blew by. It's over. Almost. All right, so we got some interesting things breaking. We're going to get right into it here. If you're new to the channel, make sure you are subscribed, folks. Make sure you are ring the bell. That way you can get alerted for the live shows. We do live shows. We do videos like this, and I do videos that are edited and just kind of to the point. People like a multitude. They like the live. We take phone calls for our live shows, so you don't want to miss out on anything. So we appreciate it. Again, here at the Patriot Hour, we always encourage you at home to connect all your own dots. Listen to everybody you can, read every article you want, watch everything you can, but believe none of it, not a lick of it, until you can verify it. All right, no more being spoon-fed. The old norms of fake news has got to go away. So we dig, and again, the difference with lying or being wrong would be that if you're wrong, you come back, you tell people that you're wrong, you made a mistake, which I had a big issue with myself my whole life. Just recently, in the last 5-6 years, I've been able to admit that I'm wrong, and I take great pride in that. So instead of being wrong and shoving it down your throat, and then if I find out I'm wrong, keeping it that way, that's deceptive, and that's big issue with the mainstream, right? All right, so we're going to jump into these two articles here. We got an executive order, possibly word is it's not looking so gravy, and it's not what we think it is. And other than that, and the bigger news is that we're getting the results of the autopsy back from Jeffrey Epstein, and the reports are showing that a broken neck. Now, if you get hung back in the day where you had the trap door, and you had the guys manning the doors, man the doors, and then they pull the lever, the sheer weight of your body and dropping 4, 5, 6 feet gave you that would be a what we would call a painless hanging, a hanging that was the most humane hanging. Okay. They, back in the days, the cowboys and Indians, some of them they were big boys, and they wouldn't break, their necks wouldn't break upon dropping, so they would then sit there and squirrely and eyeballs and just all kinds of other bad things would happen for if you're watching that, versus the snap of the neck and be done. So that's the difference. Now Epstein, I think he hung himself from the top bunk, so he wouldn't have really been able to, what did he do? Jump off the top bunk? Is that I don't know. So Jeffrey Epstein autopsy report shows broken neck. Washington Post. The autopsy into financier Jeffrey Epstein, who died in an apparent suicide while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, found his neck had been broken in several places. The Washington Post reported late on Wednesday night. Such injuries can occur to people who hang themselves or who are strangled, the newspaper said. It cited unidentified sources familiar with the autopsy results. Epstein, a multimillionaire and convicted sex offender, was found dead in his jail cell in New York City on Saturday. The circumstances of his death are under investigation. The New York Medical Examiner's Office could not be reached for comment on the post early on Thursday, and a representative did not immediately respond to the Reuters phone by text or message. It was unclear if the medical examiner had made a final determination into the cause of the death, but NBC News cited an unnamed source as saying Epstein's body had been claimed by an associate. It was also unclear when the autopsy report would be finished or made public. Epstein, 66, who once counted Republican President Donald Trump and Democratic former President Bill Clinton as friends, was found unresponsive in his cell on Saturday morning, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. A source told Reuters previously that he'd been found hanging by the neck. Epstein pleaded not guilty in charge, we know that, to all the crimes that he was facing. Attorney General William Barr said the criminal investigation into any possible co-conspirators would continue. Barr, whose agency oversees the Bureau of Prisons, has also demanded an investigation into Epstein's death and ordered the removal of the prison's warden. The disgraced financier had been on suicide watch at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan, but was then put back in the regular cell. Multiple news reports have said guards did not follow procedures. It's actually coming out now that they were sleeping and falsified the checks. Falsified their checks logs. In the military, we call that gun decking. The logs, making stuff up, not accurate information. So they didn't follow their procedures and was left alone for as long as 3 hours at a time. Separately, a team at the jail on Wednesday began an after-action review, which is normally triggered by significant events such as a prominent inmate's death. A person familiar with the matter said that the review is being headed by a prison bureau director from another region. So we'll wait for more to come out on that, but that is the breaking news on the Epstein. More and more every day, it seems to be. It stinks to high heaven, folks. They're saying that these places, I listened to Rudy Giuliani said he knows this prison well. He sent, tons of people there. The procedures and the cameras and the flow and the one job. This guy, you knew a lot of people wanted him dead. You knew that he wanted to kill himself. How do you, and it's not just that you think he might want to kill himself. He tried. And then he's released. I mean, even if you want to release him because the lawyers are arguing, you could have put him into a cell, made sure he had the roommate. That way, that can be, help. The paper sheets. No, it's like he tried to kill himself within a week and a half, 2 weeks. He's back in a cell with normal sheets, with shoestrings. What? I mean, it just doesn't seem right. It stinks. I mean, it just seems like a lot of lack, a lot of things on purpose. So we'll probably be finding out more on that. We just have to wait, folks. Tired of all the what ifs or I think, even though it's what's going to happen until the facts come out. That executive order to stop the censoring of conservatives isn't what you think it is. This comes from DC Dirty Laundry, airing out America's dirty laundry. The White House reportedly has an executive order in the works that would put 2 government agencies in charge of regulating how big tech companies moderate and curate content on their platforms. News of the executive order follows months of increasingly angry complaints from conservatives about social media companies' alleged bias against them. If you follow President Trump on Twitter, you have likely noticed that he has been engaged in 2-year-long virtual war with social media platforms over this alleged bias. Even though Twitter has never banned him or removed any of his tweets, he did get shut down for a few hours because a disgruntled employee shut down his Twitter. An actual Q kind of predicted that. That was another Q proof. Politico was the first to report the existence of the draft. The draft EO. The White House is circulating drafts of proposed executive orders that would address allegations of anti-conservative bias by social media companies, according to White House officials and 2 other people familiar with the matter. A month after President Donald Trump pledged to explore all regulatory and legislative solutions on that very issue. None of these would describe the contents and order, which one person cautioned has already taken many different forms and remains in flux. But its existence and the deliberations surrounding it are evidence that the administration is taking a serious look at wielding the federal government's power against Silicon Valley. The White House officials told Politico, if the internet is going to be presented in a egalitarian platform and most of the Twitter is liberal cesspool of venom, and then the least the president wants some fairness in the system. But look, we also think that social media plays a vital role. They have a vital role and increasingly responsibility to the culture that has helped make them so profitable and so prominent. Once politicians start using words like fairness and responsibility, be wary. Be very wary. Why? Because those terms usually mean some kind of legislation that will likely not be fair is impending. So this is how they word everything on the left. Now they're talking about doing it for the internet, and they're telling us to be weary. Well, we should be weary of any time fairness and responsibility. And I think this article should get into the fact that these people have the non-liable charge. They got that awarded, so they can't be sued, and like the media can be, the journalist. So if they already have that, they shouldn't be able to do what they're doing, conservative or not, which they have been. It's been an attack, folks. It really has been a big part of this social media digital war. Has played out hugely in the last couple of years. So that's because once the government starts meddling in private affairs, it doesn't stop. We all get that. More laws lead to more laws, and so on and so on. And it's a very vicious cycle. So once the government starts regulating things, you can look at the history of that, the phone company, all that. What kinds of penalties would companies face for alleged censorship? No one seems to know yet. None of these three political contacted could say what penalties, if any, would be imposed on companies deemed to be censoring political viewpoints. The order, which deals with other topics besides tech bias, is still in early drafting stages and is not expected to be issued imminently. The president announced at this month's social media summit that they were going to address this, and administration is exploring all policy solutions, a second White House official said when asked about the draft order. The agencies Trump wants to regulate platforms are not authorized to do so. The draft EO calls for FCC to develop new regulations clarifying how and when the law protects social media websites, when they decide to remove or suppress content on their platforms. Also, although still in early stages and subject to change, the draft EO also calls for the Federal Trade Commission to take those new policies into account when it investigates or file lawsuits against misbehaving companies. However, the federal government's opinion are limited by the First Amendment and a provision of the 1996 Communications Decency Act, which both protects online platforms from liability for their content their users post and empowers their companies to remove content without fear of liability. Creates another obstacle. The provision, Section 230, well, that all needs to be changed right there. That little 1996 protects them from any liability and then also protects them from the people that are on it. They just have a golden pass. But to, if you have one person threaten somebody and you remove them because they're conservative, and maybe that's fair, you need to remove the other side that's threatening somebody. And you can't say, well, that's what we agree with them wanting to hurt the president and calling for his head, but this person over here calling for Nancy Pelosi to get, shut up. That's not just as inappropriate. And this is where it gets really stupid, right? Really stupid. So the agencies Trump wants to regulate are not authorized. So Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act protects companies from legal responsibility for content posted on their platform, like hate speech, violence, and graphic images. That's why social media companies are generally allowed to moderate themselves as long as they're operating in good faith. But the new executive order would put all of their content moderation under the FCC's purview, CNN reports. The government agency would be able to take away a company's legal immunity if it removes or hides content without notifying the poster. The FCC can also strip the good faith immunity if it decides a company is acting unfairly or deceptively when hiding or removing content. Back in May, the White House announced it had created an online forum where Americans can share instances in which they've been censored by social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube. The forum, which now closed to new submissions, asked users to share their contact information, social media links, their censorship and their citizenship and residency status, and links or screenshots of any social media content they posted that was censored by Facebook or Instagram service, Twitter, or Google's YouTube. The permission grants the U.S. government license to use, edit, display, publish, broadcast, transmit, or otherwise distribute all or part of the content, including edited, composite, or directive work made therefrom. Read the user agreement on their form. But the White House effort may be complicated by skepticism in some agencies involved in the discussion about tech policy. So, let's see here. This is the create internet speech police. This executive order would create internet speech police. Well, we already have that, but it's an outlaw version of it. That's the whole point. It is a slippery road, folks. I'm not saying I'm for this or against it 100%, but the way it is right now, we can't keep going this way. Well, these people rose up and they made it and they're liberal and they're going to do what they want. Well, I understand everyone's got a viewpoint and that's embedded in you, but you're getting protection on certain levels from the people that are on your platform and from the government ever coming at you. You're just a platform. So that therefore anything should be able to go, because if people break the law, you can shut that down and report it. That's for either any side, but to shut down certain people for doing things and not others. And then we know you're backing that, you back the liberal leftist movement. And we can clearly see this is really violent. It breaks all your guys' policies. This has been our issue. So which way do we go here? This is a crossroads. And I get it. A lot of people, they're a private company, they're not public. Well, then why are they getting special treatment on from our government on certain things? Well, they need that. Well, then they need to abide by some certain rules. Confusing social media companies with public spaces such as a park and a sidewalk. The order mistakenly claims jurisdiction where it has none. Public spaces are held in trust by the government and generally cannot limit expression because of the ideas that are expressed. The online forums, Facebook and Twitter, provide a more comparable to a supermarket, shopping mall, or one of the president's golf courses. The corporations own the space, which remain private. If the customer dislikes the space, they can show their displeasure by shopping or golfing elsewhere. The First Amendment does not apply to private spaces since it only protects us from government restrictions on oppression. If a TV network removes a show because one of the actors shares racist ideas, this is not the government's censorship. It's a business decision. When Facebook or Twitter blocks someone or removes a post, however fair or unfair, that is not a First Amendment concern. Well, then they shouldn't get they need to get rid of the not being liable and operate that way. Well, our whole thing would be probably shut down. We wouldn't have exactly operate that way. If that's, you can't come to the government, sit there and ask for special privileges to be exempt and to make sure that you prosper without leaving it wide open. I would understand anything that's violent or, endangerment. That goes for anybody. You would do that. Anything else needs to be left. We don't want it that. Well, then you can't pick on you guys wouldn't like you. We can say, however, I mean, you guys they wouldn't like it the other way. They wouldn't like, well, I don't know how to say the other way, but you can't have two people do the exact same thing and one get blocked or shut down and the other one not. And if you look into the ties, it's always that the one that didn't, even though they did really despicable stuff, is a leftist, and they leave them alone. And if you want to operate that way, I guess that would be fine, but you're not going to get any government, unliable charges. You're going to be having to face liable charges. Now pick through your shit and keep it clean and be held liable too. So, all right, we're going to shut this one down. We're at the 20-minute mark. That's about as far as we like to take them. Keep them short and sweet for you. And you guys get your information and tidbits at the time you need it. Let it marinate. Think about it. And when you come back for the next video, it's on to something else unless there's updates on some of this stuff. Look for some live shows this weekend coming up as well. Possibly something later tonight, but we also have like a special guest coming in studio on Saturday. Look for that show. Might be a pre-recorded, but we might go live as well. Probably be a couple shows that day, early in the morning recorded or a midday live show. All right, folks. I'm Mike. This is the Patriot Hour. God bless. Godspeed to each and every one of you. We'll see you back here real soon on the next Patriot Hour update video. You have a great morning into your afternoon.